What's up, everyone? Welcome to Shout, a Buffalo Bills football podcast, live from 1402 Millersport Highway, Wingnutz Buffalo. We are in the house here tonight to talk about a football game that's still 3 days away, Ryan. The Bills were off today, but like I told all of our insiders, tweeted it out today, we are not off. We have a big game to preview. We're going to get after it in a big way tonight. How are you, my friend?
I am doing great, Matt. Excited to talk about this game coming up on Monday night.
Obviously, tonight's episode is brought to you by Wingnutz. All of our live shows are brought to you by Wingnutz, but we also want to shout out Tops. Right now, Tops has Rush to the Red Zone going on. Get game day ready with Tops. Score big savings, winning recipes, and everything you need for the ultimate game day experience. Head to the Tops Red Zone in-store for all your game days, essentials, and more. And Ryan, by the time the Bills play on Monday night, it'll have been 11 days since they went on the road to Miami and absolutely shocked a lot of people, blew out the Dolphins with a dominant defensive performance. And it's going to be a bit of a shift because I think this Jacksonville Jaguars team is a much better defense. They have potentially, on a week-to-week basis, a better quarterback, although sometimes he's not a better quarterback. We can get into Trevor Lawrence as well. What are your first impressions of this Jacksonville team, who is going to probably be pretty hungry sitting at 0-2 after the first 2 weeks?
That's just it, Matt. This is a desperate Jacksonville team coming to Buffalo. 0-2 to start the year. They drop that opener to Miami, a game they absolutely should have won. Then they go and they play Cleveland, a team that I think, again, many fans thought they would win that game. They drop a game to Deshaun Watson, and now they come to Buffalo. And, they have had Buffalo's number. They had Buffalo's number last year in London. They play them very tough. And you mentioned it, that defense has given the Bills some fits over the years. So it's an interesting matchup, but I certainly like where the Bills are at coming off of, what some call a mini bye with that Thursday night game following up with this Monday nighter.
We're going to get into some of the matchups that we think are the key to this game. We'll get into our predictions later in the show. We'll also even bring up a couple of fans who are in the house tonight to get their thoughts on the game and the start to the season, because I remember a couple of weeks ago when we were doing our season preview edition, when I picked them to win 11 games, you picked them to win 12 games. We had some fans picking them for 14 wins. And I don't know, the way that this season has started, I'm starting to be even more bullish on this team, mainly because of what we're seeing on the defensive side of the ball. Terrell Bernard, Taron Johnson already ruled out for Monday Night Football, but their backups, Balin Spector last week against the Dolphins, was outstanding. I went back and watched that game. The way that he responded after a really bad first play, the touchdown to Devin Achane, was masterful. The way that he played that game against that offense in that spot, I don't think you could say enough for what he's meant and also what Cam Lewis has meant in place of Taron Johnson.
The whole next man up mentality that Sean McDermott has preached over the years, they've been doing it this year. They lose Matt Milano before the season begins, and now it's Balin Spector that's kind of manning the linebacker room with Terrell Bernard out. We've talked about Cam Lewis, Jamarcus Ingram. They are just getting guys that have stepped up week in and week out. And then you look at the defensive line, Matt. Man, this has been maybe the most pleasant surprise for this team. The Greg Rousseau game in week 1. Von Miller, 2 sacks in 2 weeks after going, 660-some days without a sack?
Yeah, 626.
Yeah, so to see him playing at that level, Ed Oliver having a game. If this defensive line keeps it going, it makes life easier on those linebackers in that secondary.
So I want to start breaking down this game. Where are you looking in terms of the deciding factor of this game? Because if you look at the last couple of matchups, and I think the only one I really want to talk too much about is last season. If you go back to that 9-6 game, it was Urban Meyer. It was a super weird game like Ed Oliver talked about. Last season, I think you can understand why the game went that way. The Bills were tired. They were going internationally. Sean McDermott didn't go very early in the week. I think that they've kind of paid for that. You saw Baltimore adjust a couple week later, going earlier in the week. It was a lackadaisical game. It was a Matt Milano injury, a Daquan Jones injury. I think they're in a really good spot with what they have behind Matt Milano at this point. Dorian Williams is playing pretty good football as well. I mentioned Balin Spector. Dorian Williams is right there as well. But in that game, I went back and looked just at the box score. I didn't go back and watch that game because I was watching this year's Jacksonville games. We'll get into that in a moment. Jacksonville moved the ball consistently, 475 yards of total offense. I don't think in Buffalo with the way that this defense is playing, even with the injuries, that they're going to be able to consistently do that. And we saw last week, if you get pressure on Trevor Lawrence, if you make him feel it, he's not the same quarterback, and I don't think that offense operates the same way.
No, I agree with that completely. And if you look at that London game, it was some great defensive plays by A.J. Epinesa that kept the Bills in it when they weren't playing well on the offensive side of the ball. And Trevor Lawrence, for all of his brilliant moments, he has a lot of plays that leave you scratching your head and wanting more for a guy that was supposed to be the next big thing at that quarterback position. So, you look at this game, yeah, I think they have a chance to move the ball on Buffalo. Miami moved the ball on Buffalo for that matter, but it's going to come down to me with the red zone defense. Last year, Jacksonville was one of the worst teams in the league in terms of red zone scoring. I believe it was 29th or 30th in the league. This year, they're 3 for 7 in that area. So if they do move the ball, we need to see Buffalo playing like they did against Miami, and even like they did in that second half against Arizona, where they might get a few plays here and there, but then that defense tightens up and limits the scoring opportunities.
The problem for sustaining drives, especially long drives, if they're not hitting on deep plays, we know the Bills like to limit those big plays down the field. I'll be interested to see how much Brian Thomas Jr. factors into this game. Gabe Davis has this circled, a big circle on the schedule, because it's a revenge game in a lot of ways for him. The Bills were never going to sign him to big money. I think he knew that going into free agency. I remember talking to him before the end of the season, and without saying it, it felt like that. And he went out and he got paid in Jacksonville. It's been a very ho-hum start to the season for him. But I think it's going to be about limiting plays, to your point, shoring things up in the red zone, getting pressure, and, again, getting turnover. Last week was an absolute amazing performance from a turnover perspective. When you turn the ball over that many times in a game, and interesting sneaky stat from last year when Jacksonville and Buffalo played in London, Jacksonville fumbled in that game 4 times. Yeah. Bills only recovered 2 of them. So even if you turn them over 2 times at home with the stadium, I think it's going to be a good spot for them.
And you've mentioned some Jacksonville receivers. They're pretty loaded in that area. They have a lot of talent. But one player they're probably not going to have is Evan Ingram.
Right.
And that's big for a Bills team who's on their backup linebackers. It's big even though they kept Ingram in check last year in London. I believe he had 1 catch for 5 yards. You take away one of their main weapons like that, and now they can kind of zero in a little bit on Travis Etienne. And we know the way the cornerbacks have started this year, the way they shut down Marvin Harrison Jr. and he goes off in week 2 against the Rams, the way they've limited Tyreek Hill to 3 catches for 24 yards and 41 yards, I believe, for Jalen Waddle. They've already shown that they can kind of shut down these top guys with Ross Sewell-Douglas and Christian Benford. So I like a lot of these matchups for the Bills, despite the wide receiver room.
I want to flip things over to the offensive side of the ball for the Bills, because I think I'm interested to see how the Bills approach this matchup, because last week, Cleveland, I thought Deshaun Watson played better. Now, playing better isn't necessarily playing good. I thought Cleveland left a lot on the field. They were really trying to get the ball out of his hands super early. They're running a lot of slant patterns. They were trying to work to the running backs in the short area of the field, a lot of screen passes, but they were able to run the ball. I think 172 yards on the ground. So I think this is going to be a game where you try to get James Cook, Ray Davis, and even Ty Johnson going against that front. And if you can establish the run game, I think that keeps this pass rush at bay. Trayvon Walker on the one side, Josh Hines-Allen on the other side. And don't forget, we talked about that last game last year. Josh Hines-Allen was an absolute monster in that game.
Yeah, he was a nightmare. Blocking him, he was making plays against Buffalo's Josh Allen. Stopping him, limiting him is probably one of the biggest keys to this game. But coming off of this Thursday night win for the Bills, I like where they're at because they didn't have to show much in Miami to win that game 31-10. I feel like there's still so much in that offensive playbook that they haven't even had to show yet in terms of maybe a Curtis Samuel package. Getting the ball more to Dalton Kincaid. We know the run game has been very effective for Buffalo through 2 weeks, with James Cook scoring 3 touchdowns last week on his own. So I really like where they're at, and the fact that I still think there's so much that they haven't even shown yet because Joe Brady hasn't had to.
It's amazing. Bills fans are amazing, even despite the 2-0 start, with how hot this team is on both sides of the ball. There is a big red panic button in my DMs and on the insider text line, and on it reads Curtis Samuel. People want to know why he hasn't been more heavily involved. And I think for me, one of the big things with why his snap count might not be where it needs to be, to your point, you haven't really had to run out the heavy passing game yet, but also they're leaning into Keon Coleman. They're getting him snaps. I think Curtis Samuel with the toe issue going into the season, I think you wanted to kind of peel that back a little bit and have it not be a situation where he has to play 60, 70, 80% of the snaps early on, because he's going to be important to what they want to do, not just now, but in November, December, and January.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've seen Keon Coleman make some big plays though in week 1 down the sideline. We know that he is better in terms of the route running that maybe some questions were posed about him. Last week, he was not very involved. He had 1 target late in the game. Josh Allen kind of threw it downfield when he was rolling out of bounds. But he'll have his opportunities in these matches, especially in the red zone. I feel like the red zone is where they're going to get him involved early in the year. It's going to be those matchups where they can create mismatches. We've seen Joe Brady do that already with some of this pre-snap movement and create mismatches, including one last week with Curtis Samuel on a linebacker where Josh Allen just underthrew it. So Brady's going to do the same thing for guys like Keon Coleman, Khalil Shakir. He's going to get opportunities for guys like Dalton Kincaid too. It's just a matter of they haven't had to show much through 2 weeks yet, and that works in Buffalo's advantage.
Another guy that I think if you're looking at this matchup, who the Bills have to be ultra aware of, I like Eric Armstead and what he brings in the middle of that defense. I also like Foye. What's his last name? The middle linebacker. Yeah, Come on, Ryan. Come on, Ryan. Olakun. He is everything that you want in an all-pro caliber middle linebacker. His addition to that defense last season, you felt it immediately. He's also really good as a blitzer. So I feel like, all right, tackling, second level, you have to be aware of him. You also have to be aware of him if you're Josh Allen in pass protection or that offensive line running backs, because they are going to send him on blitzes. I'm also interested to see, as this season goes along, early in like the rise of Josh Allen 2020, we saw him really stand up against teams that wanted to send a lot of blitzes, right? Over time, as teams kind of evolve and change, how much do you want to blitz Josh Allen? That's a question week to week. I think this Jacksonville team could try to send a lot of pressure, put some pressure on Josh Allen, try to make him make mistakes.
Absolutely could, but Allen has shown in his career too that he can kill teams when they blitz him, and he can make those big plays down the field, keep things moving with his legs. You know, you look at last week, he didn't take one quarterback hit in that game against Miami. The legs were still on display. I know he's dealing with a left hand injury, but Jacksonville has to be very cautious with how they play him in this matchup because, like you said, they have a lot of stars on the defensive side of the ball. Armstead, who was almost a Bill, it felt like this offseason. There was the report that he was signing with
I still don't think Brandon Beane, if you asked him, is over that whole ordeal.
Probably not, but the talent's there. And if they do blitz, Allen has the ability to really hurt them. I'm sure Brady's going to have some things dialed up where if they see a potential blitz coming, have some options for Allen to drop it off to, because that's been working. Hitting the singles, so to speak, has been working for Allen in this Bills offense.
Let's take a look at this wide receiver room. I'll throw in Dalton Kincaid and Dawson Knox as well. On the outside, I mean, old Bills friend Ronald Darby is playing a quarterback for them. Former Bill, I should say. They have a couple of names. Andre Sisco, guy we talked a lot about a couple years ago out of Syracuse at safety. He's a little bit banged up. I don't know if he's going to 100% going to play. You mentioned Evan Ingram as well. What do you think about this pass catching group in terms of who can maybe have a big performance in this game? Because you saw Jerry Jeudy make a couple plays. I thought it was actually Elijah Moore for Cleveland, who had a lot of success against Jacksonville. Kind of makes me think this could be a Khalil Shakir game.
I was just going to say, how do you not go with Khalil Shakir? Anything that's been thrown his way this year, he's hauled in and he's caught. He's the guy that Josh Allen trusts the most in that wide receiver room, arguably more than Dalton Kincaid when you throw in the tight ends as well. So to me, it's a Khalil Shakir game. I think there's opportunities, though, for Kincaid. And like I said, don't be surprised if there's a few wrinkles for Curtis Samuel, who hasn't shown much this season or had the opportunities that he's probably expecting, or probably that the Bills can give him in these tougher matchups.
I also think it's going to be a game where they want to maybe even involve James Cook in the passing game even more. We mentioned some of those potential screenplays to wide receivers. I think you want to get the ball in space to James Cook. All eyes are going to be on Joe Brady with how he kind of dials this up against a team that has a couple of players that can bring consistent pressure. But here we are right now, a couple weeks after the Spencer Brown extension. Deion Dawkins got his big extension in the offseason. You are paying a lot of money to two what looks like elite players at their position in a good-on-good matchup against elite players. It's almost going to be like consistently over the course of the game, who can win at a more consistent pace? Because you saw on the flip side last week, Myles Garrett absolutely destroy this game for the Jacksonville Jaguars. So on that side of things, I'm looking at Greg Rousseau, Von Miller. Can A.J. Epinesa find a way to maybe get a little bit of that energy, that juice that he had last year against Jacksonville? I'm not very overly impressed with their offensive line. I think the Bills' front four with the returning DeJuan Smoot, who's going to get thrown in the mix. Ed Oliver said something interesting this week. I don't know if you saw his press conference. He said they're excited to get DeJuan Smoot back, mainly because he calls the defense on third down. Like, he runs the third down calls. So you think about that all throughout training camp, all throughout the preseason, he was kind of ascending into that role on third down. And over the last couple of years, Jordan Phillips, Tim Settle, guys that have never really been able to eat on this Bills defensive line. Smoot can play inside, but he can also play outside, obviously, as an edge rusher. I'm going to be watching DeJuan Smoot against this offensive line.
Yeah, starting with Buffalo's offensive line, as you mentioned, Deion Dawkins has been playing at an all-pro level through 2 weeks. He's been locking everyone down. I thought Spencer Brown had an unbelievable game against Miami last week. If they play at that level against Jacksonville, it's going to make life that much easier for Josh Allen, James Cook as well in the backfield. But on the other side of the ball, the Bills' pass rush has been great. Greg Rousseau has been outstanding. Von Miller's been great. We saw Ed Oliver step up last week too. If they can expose Jacksonville's offensive line and get after Trevor Lawrence, that's when he makes those mistakes. That's when he throws those passes that leave you confused, and that's when the Bills can maybe, cause a few turnovers and win that possession battle when all is said and done.
A lot of backing it up, you mentioned the throws that Trevor Lawrence makes that kind of leave you confused at times. I don't necessarily think that him and Gabe Davis are necessarily on the same page yet. There was a couple plays in the Cleveland game. Now, that defense is elite. Like, it didn't maybe look like that week one, but it definitely rebounded in a big way against a good offense. But Gabe Davis, just a couple of balls in his general area that were either overthrown, they weren't on the same page. He still catches super weird with the whole alligator clutch grip, but I still think you have to be aware of him. And I think luckily for the Bills, you think about Taylor Rapp, Cam Lewis, Benford, and Douglas, super familiar with all of these receivers outside of Brian Thomas Jr., who's obviously a rookie.
Yeah, absolutely. And, Gabe Davis, though, made his career in Buffalo on big plays. And if there's one thing the Bills' defense does well, it's limit big plays. So they need to know where he is at all times. But I would be surprised if he were to break out with a big gainer like he's done so many times at Highmark Stadium when he was with Josh Allen in this Bills offense.
All right, so I'm going to ask, we're going to transition here in a minute. We're going to bring up some fans. We're going to bring up Ed in a minute as well. He's in the house, as always. We're going to give our predictions at the end of the show, so stay tuned for that. If you're watching on YouTube right now, hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel as well. We're cooking, Ryan. We're almost up to 12,000 subscribers on the YouTube channel. We really appreciate that. I want to give our players to watch on both teams. So you got to pick one Bills player and one Jacksonville Jaguars player in this game. And I'll start. For me, sneaky, maybe the most important player on defense. I know we talked so much about the defensive line, and we talked about the linebackers, who I think are playing at a really good level. I'm really looking at Taylor Rapp in this game. I thought Grant Delpit for the Cleveland Browns had a big impact on that game last week in coverage, but also at the line of scrimmage. I think Taylor Rapp, with the physicality, the way that he plays in this game, forced fumbles, big tackles for a loss when they do have him play around the line of scrimmage. I'm really going to be watching Taylor Rapp because the physical players last week for Cleveland, I think, shook the Jaguars offense a little bit.
Sure. And no, absolutely. That's a great choice there. For the Bills, I'm going to stay on the defensive line. I'm going to go with Greg Rousseau in this game. He needs to flash like he did in week one, be that constant disruptor, get Trevor Lawrence off of his mark, make him hold the ball a little bit too long. That's when good things generally happen. And you also need Greg Rousseau to, play well against the run, because Travis Etienne can hurt you. He's a home run hitter. he was my guy to watch on Jacksonville's offense.
Me too. So we can just talk about Travis Etienne for a minute. I think that the way the Bills set the edge on the outside is going to be so important. I thought Etienne, his best run against Cleveland was when they really muddy things up on the inside and he broke it to the outside. I think it was like a 12 or 13, 14-yard run. He can do that. And he can do it consistently. And we saw Achane last week get some runs going. We saw James Conner run the ball a little bit in week 1 against this Bills defense. It hasn't hurt him yet. But you don't want to be in a situation where Etienne gets comfortable and you're not setting that edge. You're not making those plays on the outside, and he can get into a comfort zone.
Yeah, they have to stay disciplined on the edges. They have to make sure that he can't break off those big runs because, he has that extra gear. And there was a reason why the Bills were linked to him in that draft process a few years ago. Why Etienne even said when he was drafted, he thought it was going to be the Bills that were going to take him because of how much work they did. They know that he is an explosive player, and if the Bills can keep him in check, it's going to go a long way in them winning this game and moving to 3-0.
Every once in a while, if you watch Shout, you know that I like to throw Ryan for a little bit of a loop. So I'm going to have you host Ed and Alicia here,
right,
and I'm going to have them bring it in. I'm going to step out for a second. So Ed and Alicia, come on in here. The OGs, let's give it up for them. If without them, we wouldn't be here, and these beautiful chicken wings wouldn't be here either.
All right. I was going to say, we call this story time with Ed and Alicia, so I don't have to do too much here, Matt. I'm going to kind of let you guys run with this thing.
All right. First of all, hello, Wingnutz! All right. And as usual, I want to thank God for what Wingnutz has become and for all these people, and thank this crew, and especially you and Matt for coming here and spending your time with us. It's wonderful.
We love it.
We're just as excited as you are. So, well, anyway, today's story involves where Alicia and I live. We live in an apartment complex where it's for 55 or older. And Alicia and I are literally the youngest people in the building. The average age is 93. And there's wheelchairs, walkers, and canes everywhere. And last March, the two people who are the event planners for our building came here for the very first time and brought their family who was in from San Francisco. And they sat in the back of the dining room and they had a great time, ordered everything on the menu, tried a little of everything. And the next day, I went outside of our apartment into the hallway, and our whole building is one long, gigantic hallway. And I'm at one end, like halfway through it, and our building event planner, his name is Rich, was way at the other end, and it was only like 6:30 in the morning. And I just waved to be courteous like that. He puts his arms up and screams at the top of his lungs, "Best food ever!" and practically woke up the whole building.
I believe that. He's not wrong either.
No, and he still does it now. So I just thought I would share that. I did want to share one thing with you and have Alicia share too. We were talking about this week's game, and I would really like to see the revenge for the England fiasco.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So,
Yep.
okay. So that, and I think they need to really shake Trevor Lawrence up.
I love it. Any score
Shake him.
predictions?
If they fire on all cylinders, it won't be close. I really think that they can just crush them. That's what I'd like to see. Will it be close? It might be, but if we shake up Trevor, he's not going to be able to do anything. So
No, completely agree. Great stuff, Ed and Alicia. Thank you guys
Thank
so
you very
much.
much.
Give it up for Ed and Alicia,
thank you,
everyone.
Wingnutz.
All right. It's my favorite time of the show, of the live show. We got to bring you over here. We're going to bring some fans up here. Ryan came out here tonight. Come on up, man.
Yeah, come on in.
A regular listener to Shout, and a little bit of a blast from the past tonight. During the pandemic, as things were kind of shut down and we were all in our houses, we started doing those fan Zooms, and you said those were a great time.
Oh, absolutely. They were such a fun time getting the fans involved. Just
share and joy in the team we love.
Awesome. Well, where are you from, by the way?
I'm originally from Buffalo, but I moved to Vegas 4 years ago.
My man. What part of Vegas do you live in?
Summerlin.
Nice. I lived just Spring Valley, like right outside of Summerlin there. That's awesome. All right. So you're here for the game, right? Monday Night Football. What are your feelings? What are your thoughts? Did you expect this kind of start? And how did the start affect how you feel about Monday night?
Yeah, I feel like for me, I'm an optimistic fan, but yeah, I feel like the start was expected for me because this defense always under McDermott knows what it's doing. I feel like they showed in the offseason that the safeties weren't necessarily as important than maybe we thought that they were. No disrespect to Hyde and Poyer, but they got old. That's what people do. They brought in Hamlin as the starting safety. They brought in Edwards in free agency, drafted Cole Bishop in the second round. And the defensive line, now that Greg Rousseau, contract year, Von Miller, 2 years removed from his injury, I felt like they would be able to eat, and that's what they've shown. And as far as the offense, Josh Allen is Josh Allen. He's going to do what he's got to do, no matter who he's throwing the ball to. Kincaid in his second year, good chemistry with the receivers so far. Looking for a big game with Jacksonville hurting at the cornerback position.
Shout fan. A+ analysis as usual. Score prediction. What do you got?
It's going to be about pressure on Trevor Lawrence, as he said. I think it's going to be close in the beginning, but as we get comfortable, I'm really looking for a big day from the receivers. And James Cook, Dalton Kincaid, they do run a lot of man, actually highest man coverage in the league. 34-24.
34-24 Buffalo Bills. I like it.
Yes,
thank you so much for coming out tonight, man. Give it up for Ryan. All right, Michael, come on up here. I saw you out there. You got to come in a little bit closer here.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Right in the middle there.
Take this one.
Thanks for having me on, Matt. It's nice to be here at Wingnutz all the time.
Yeah, man. Go ahead.
Oh,
yeah. So what are your thoughts about this game going into it? Jacksonville's had Buffalo's number, London game last year. The other Josh Allen's had some success against the Bills. What are you
no
feeling?
longer the other Josh Allen.
No longer. That's true. That's true. You threw a little name, extra name in there. But how are you feeling going into this game for the Bills?
You know, I wanted to get your guys' thoughts on what Ed Oliver touched on how weird all these, not just recent Jacksonville Jaguars games versus the Bills, but historically speaking. It goes all the way back to 96, the first time we played them when Kelly got knocked out of the game, and that was his last game, and we lost our first playoff game at home ever, I do believe. And there's always been these last-minute wins by the Jaguars and lackluster offensive performances the last two times. Let's not even speak the name of Urban Meyer anymore. Only one of two wins that he ever had in the NFL, and we gave one of them to. But in last year, and you were talking about the London game, where they were kind of lackadaisical offensively, and then they started to pick it up, got a couple of touchdowns at the end, couldn't quite come up with that last one. But how do you get the sense that these players feel about playing the Jaguars? Because if Ed Oliver's saying it out loud, what we're all thinking, how bizarre these games can be, how bizarre the Bills' performances can be, then I wonder how many other players are kind of getting that same thing. I know Sean will have them focused, and, you know, every season is different, every game is different. But what's your impression about how the players feel as a whole?
You know, that's a great question. There are a lot of players on this roster that have been here for some of those games. But the beauty of this 2024 roster is how many new additions that they have, where they're not going into this game thinking about the Urban Meyer game or the London game. And I think Matt touched upon it earlier. The London game, I think, was a lot to do with Buffalo coming over on a Friday, how tired they looked in that game. They just couldn't get things going. The mistake they made waiting that week in terms of when they flew over, because the day we came in, we were very tired and we had to stay awake and get used to that time zone. Buffalo didn't really have that working in their advantage. So I think going into this game, you know, fresh team, fresh roster, 2-0, and they know, like you said, McDermott's going to have them ready, and Jacksonville's going to throw everything at them possible because they're 0-2, and they want to avoid that 0-3 start.
Speaking of throwing everything at them possible, I got a little stat that's a bit surprising. Jacksonville, I don't know if you've heard this, number one in explosive plays through the first 2 weeks of the NFL, 14.3 explosive play rate. The Bills are only at 9%. That's more toward the middle of the league. But yet Jacksonville's only scored, they haven't even cracked 20 points, 17 and 13 points so far. And I think it's what you touched on earlier, only 3 of 7 in the red zone they are.
Yes. Yeah, only 3 of 7. Struggled in that area last year, 29th in the league. It's been their Achilles heel the last year and plus.
So I think that plays into how Sean McDermott and Bobby Babbage. I'm still learning. It's the killer bees of coordinators we got here. Bobby Babbage likes to play their defenses, bend but don't break, go up and make tackles, let them catch it short. Really how the whole league is playing defense these days. I think they're kind of copying the Bills' blueprints. But if Jacksonville can get one off explosive play, but they can't quite close the deal in the red zone where the field's getting shorter, more defenders per space on the field, then that'll play right into the Bills, what the Bills want to do on defense. And also, I'm hearing, if I'm not mistaken, there's a Jacksonville cornerback that's been put on IR. That'll be a weakness that maybe Josh Allen can exploit with all these two high shell defenses going around these days.
Yeah, absolutely. Score prediction?
I've got one more tidbit before I go into score predictions. Something I heard from Dan Fates that was actually interesting about this first next man up mentality. The Bills coaches actually like to spend time and watch film one-on-one, not just with each individual defender, but with the backups as well. Yeah. And that's something that I guess is not very done often. And that's why you see guys like Dorian Williams just stepping in for guys like, Matt Milano's out and so many guys are dropping like flies. And they have been the last couple of years. Maybe that's what Sean McDermott is taking into account, that, the defense could be falling apart. But that's why you have to get the next man ready and not just, make them aware of the game plan, but spend time and see what's going on in their heads with how they like to attack on defense.
Yeah, sure. Prep them like they're going to start because you never know when that opportunity is going to come.
All right, so score predictions. I can see the Jaguars getting some points. I see the Bills holding up on defense. I see them utilizing their run a little bit more and trying to attack the weaknesses, the lack of depth on the cornerbacks of the Jacksonville Jaguars. I don't know that it'll be a runaway game, but I figure 27-17.
Love it. Very good.
All right, one more thing. Recently, I've rejoined the Trainwreck Network's Buffalo Bills preview podcast called Pay the Bills. We're on every Tuesday. I'm on there with Jake Micah, Mike Bunt, and Carson Hayek. So you can catch me every Tuesday night analyzing the Bills post-game and then previewing the next week.
Love it. Thank you.
I'm so disappointed in you. You literally just gave that little advertisement for your show, and you didn't even say this train never stops. I'm so disappointed in you, Michael.
That's Maniac's line.
Okay, say it so we have it for the camera.
This train never stops.
He'll be proud of you. Give it up for Michael. Thanks, buddy. All right, so our next guest, Scott Moranto, is an OG. I think he was at our first live show ever. One of my good friends. We play basketball together a lot, except not lately because I have a little bit of some groin issues, Ryan. It's a little bit of a crapshoot from week to week, but we're getting through. We had a good run on Wednesday. How are you, buddy?
I'm doing good. I was just gonna say for Michael, like he should start his own podcast. You guys were gonna be out of business in a second there. You see the stuff he brought to the table?
Right.
He had stats. He had analysis. Michael Partham, he's also an OG, has been coming to these shows for a long time. What do you got for us, buddy?
Mike, great job. I like meeting guys like that when we come out to the live pods. I was coming to the live pods before they were live pods. You remember when I came out to Amherst Ale House and you guys were just sitting out on the patio, and I was like, nah, I'm going to show up.
We just literally were hanging out. We didn't even have a show that night. And actually, you were the coordinator of one of our first ever live shows, what we did with Joe Marino.
It was fun. That was fun at Sunny Reds. Yes, that was a good time. You also have a super chat. Tony Washington, shout out on the live pod.
He's producing the show in real time. Super chat from Tony. We'll get it up on the screen. What's up, buddy? Thank you so much. Listen, you're earning it tonight, dude. I really appreciate that.
I'm hoping to be a producer at some point, to follow in the great footsteps of all the producers of this show. That would be great,
We got a great new one starting. Evan Hilbert just put out his first article today. He's interning for us this semester. Did a great job. He'll probably pop up on the show at some point this season. So what are you thinking right now? What's on your mind? What is burning the Scott Moranto brain at this moment?
Not much. I mean, the Bills they're 2-0. I mean, I'm not stressing too much. We're playing the Jaguars. Yeah, there's been some weird games. Trevor Lawrence is like the Riddler. He's an enigma. I don't know. Did you see that throw in week 1, the Brian Thomas touchdown?
Yeah.
Oh my God. That guy can play, right?
Were you team Brian Thomas Jr. trade up? And okay, answer were you trade up for Brian Thomas Jr. And then also answer, has that position changed after watching him in Jacksonville's offense the first 2 weeks?
He's definitely shown that he can run more than just a 9 route, just a go route. I think there's a little bit more versatility to his game. I think they're unlocking, he's height, weight, speed, a ball of clay that you can mold and be really excited about. So I think they should be really excited about what he brings to the table. That would have been a great pick for the Bills. No, you can't go up and get him. So I was not team trade up for Brian Thomas Jr. I think this game will be interesting. The Bills O-line versus the Jacksonville D-line. Jacksonville's going to run man coverage. Like Michael was saying, it's Tyson Campbell that's out for this game at least. I don't know, IR situation. He might have mentioned that. You've got a corner that's down. Ronald Darby, good man corner. I still think you can win some matchups with him. Keon must have a height advantage on Ronald Darby. And then the backup corner is Marterick Brown. So I think that's a nice matchup for the Bills. They should hunt those matchups. I think it'll be interesting. It's different than the first 2 games that the Bills have played. We haven't seen a lot of man coverage. You're going to play against Josh Allen, 2 high safeties, zone him off, make him beat you, make him be patient. Josh is not the type of player previously that would be willing to be patient, do the smart right thing all the time, work the ball down the field. So this will be a little bit different of a game, a little bit different of a scheme that they're going to face. They're going to play man coverage. They're going to bring the blitz. Can Josh, work against that and keep us productive, keep us on schedule? I'm looking forward to that.
Game plan wise, Ryan, this is super interesting because if you go back to last week and to you against Cleveland, they got out to the early 10-0 lead. So they could be patient. Ken Dorsey, just kidding, Kevin Stefanski, could be really patient with how he was calling the game. They were going to run no matter what in that game. They didn't want to put too much on Deshaun Watson's plate. Do you think if the Jaguars get up early in this game, the Bills can stay patient and continue to run the ball? Or is that something where you're going to have to kind of break a little glass with Josh Allen and force the pass? And maybe it'll be easier with Campbell out, but they do like to send some pressure, some different looks.
Yeah, I still think they'd stay patient with the run, a little bit like week 1 against Arizona, where Arizona got out to a lead and the Bills were still running the ball at times, where you and I even looked at each other in the press box like, what is this game plan? What are they doing? And yeah, Josh Allen was able to kind of turn it on and play Superman in that game to bring them back and win it. But they didn't abandon the run in that game. I don't think they'll abandon the run in this one if they find themselves in an early hole.
I have a question for you guys, given what I was saying about the offense-defensive matchup. Do you think the Bills wide receiver core versus that man-to-man coverage, can they win man-to-man matchups?
Yes, but I almost think that that particular part of things might make this more of a Dalton Kincaid game, because I think he can win one-on-one matchups, and I think you could be maybe a little bit more creative in this game with how you use him and where you line him up. But across the board, to your point, Keon Coleman's going to have to eventually start winning against man, so this might be a good week to maybe do that.
You watch some of the routes against Jalen Ramsey. I think he might have struggled in some of those scenarios, so would like to see that against, obviously Jalen Ramsey, highest paid cornerback in the league. That's a tough matchup for anybody. So interested to see what that looks like. Have we talked about Chad Muma at all?
We have not.
Wyoming product, Chad Muma. I mean, he knows Josh Allen, no?
He does. But he knows the previous version of Josh Allen. I don't know if he knows this version, does he?
And he would be the guy that's matched up one-on-one with Dalton Kincaid, to your point. So I'm interested. I'm interested to see it. I'm not stressed about the game at all. 2-0. We're ahead of schedule. We play weird games against Jacksonville, as Ed Oliver says, but let's see what happens on Monday night.
What's the score?
27-21.
27-21 Bills. Give it up for my man, Scott Moranto. Thank you so much for coming up, man. Appreciate it. All right. We're going to get out of here in a minute. Is there anybody else? I'd like to give that shout out. Huh? I saw you sneak in here, buddy. Come on up. We're gonna have to put the camera up a little bit. How are you, dude?
How you doing? Nice to see
Is this your first time ever coming on? Oh my gosh! After all this time, you've been to probably like 3 different shows, and this is your first time coming on the show.
Yeah, a little bit of stage fright. We'll get there, right?
Listen, there is nothing to be afraid of. There's only 1,000 people watching across all 3 platforms, and 40 people in here. Just don't say anything stupid. You know what I mean? No, I'm just kidding. All right. So what? Yeah, we can edit it. It's 2024. Ryan, what's your big question?
Ooh, what's my big question? Who is your X factor in this game for the Bills, either on offense or defense?
I'm going to go with Balin Spector, unless it's been said already. Then
No, I like it.
Change my tune. It's not the tallest task to come in. Yeah. It's not the tallest task to come in and start against this team, I don't think. They're struggling right now. Coaching needs a big upgrade, in my opinion. But, you got big shoes to fill, Bernard going down, and not having Milano there too. It's kind of the obvious, I guess. But between him and Dorian, I think that's a huge part of the defense, like a big layer of the defense, obviously. And I think the defensive line will help them out greatly. They can take advantage of that right tackle. What's his name again? Heard this in
Who's at right tackle? Cam Robinson's on the left.
The right tackle. Ashton's. It's a couple years now.
I have it here.
Yes.
Anton Harrison.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think from Ohio State or something like that. But I think if they can take advantage of him, it frees up the linebackers to do what they need to do. And I think as long as they get out to like an early lead and don't try to get too cute with this team, I think they can get out to like a 10-point lead. They'll take care of business. I think they'll win by – I'll go past what your last guest had, and I'll say 30-17.
30-17 Bills.
Feel pretty good about this one.
All right. Awesome stuff. Great debut.
Love it.
Anything else?
Yeah, all
Thanks,
good.
brother.
Thank
Appreciate you coming out.
All right.
See you in a second. Hi. Can I help you? Are you coming on? All right. One more guest. We're pushing up against the time here, buddy. But I'll give you a little love. Are you coming on too, dear? You were just on the last show, and actually, you predicted. What was your prediction? How many points did you say the Bills were going to score last time?
9.
No, you said 50, 100,000 or something like that, right? It was close. It was 31. That was a good prediction. All right, let's see what Lucas has got. What do you think about this matchup against the Jaguars? We were watching the game today against the Browns. Saw that big hit on special teams. What do you think? It's a tough game.
I think it's going to be close.
It's going to be close. So what's the score?
42 Bills. 35 Jaguars.
42-35.
High scoring
Wow,
game.
the defenses are not showing up on Monday Night Football, everybody. You heard it here first. What do you think, dear?
Wait, what do you mean?
What's the score going to be? I thought you were prepared for this, honey. What do you think the score is going to be?
Okay.
All right. Do me a favor. Tweet it, okay? All right. Hit the road. Thanks, guys. Oh, you got it? Okay, got it.
80-100.
All right. 80-100 this time. Good job. All right. Thank you to my children. All right. Prediction time, Ryan Talbot. What do you got?
Prediction time. This is going to be a big Curtis Samuel game because of that man defense. He created a lot of separation last year in Washington, just didn't have a good quarterback play whatsoever. So I think this is his coming out party for the Bills. Bold prediction, Brandon Codrington has a big return in this game if given the opportunity. Ooh. Bills win 34-20.
34-20, so a 14-point game.
14-point game, and they stay scoring in the 30s.
So I think this is going to be probably not as popular of a prediction, but I do think this is a very desperate Jacksonville Jaguars team. They play the Bills tight. We've talked about it all night. These are always weird games. I think the Bills have to take care of the football. They can't have any interceptions. They got to limit putting the ball on the turf. In the end, I think they do enough to win. I think it's kind of a little bit ugly, 26-21. I think both of these defenses can give these offenses fits. I think it might be low scoring in the first half, and then you see them kind of go back and forth in the second half. I got the Bills winning 26-21.
Love it. 3-0. I don't think any Bills fans would be complaining if they start out 3-0 this year, Matt.
And then don't look now, but on the road, Baltimore Ravens, week 4. You could potentially be facing an 0-2 team in the Jags in week 3 and an 0-3 Baltimore Ravens team in week 4. How much would Bills fans like that, actually?
I don't know if they would like that. I think they'd feel pretty bad about it, to be quite honest, because of the whole, desperation mode. But no one would have seen that coming in terms of Jacksonville and Baltimore being winless at this point.
Keep talking. I got to look up this.
All right. So we are getting at least closer to this early primetime sledge of games that I'm not a huge fan of being out the window. This week, Jacksonville. Next week, Baltimore. And then at least it's a 1 o'clocker against Houston after that. So that was maybe the most shocking game to me, Matt, in terms of what wasn't a primetime game. I thought Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, and all that drama was a sure primetimer, but I'll take a 1 p.m. game any day.
We have been busy on the Insider text line, and you can join right now by texting 716-528-6727. 2-week free trial, $3.99 a month. After that, the Shout text line is brought to you by Carrie C. Beyer, attorney with the law offices of Francis M. Litro, located at 237 Main Street in Buffalo, New York. If you or someone you know is seriously injured, give them a call, 716-852-1234, or check out litrolaw.com. From Wingnutz in Buffalo, 1402 Millersport Highway, Ryan and I are about to destroy some signature wings here in a minute, talk some Bills with all of our friends. For Ryan Talbot, I'm Matt Parrino. We will see you on Monday night. Take care, everybody.